Good morning and welcome to lesson 25. By the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to determine the solution to a system of equations by graphing. This is something we've kind of practiced a little bit over the last couple of days, but we're really going to apply it today. You'll know you're successful when you can use the slope and y-intercept of a system of linear equations to determine if it has one solution, no solution, or infinite solutions after you have graphed. We're going to go through our lesson like usual, background, examples, exercises, closure, and the exit ticket. As always, keep in mind our class expectations as we move through today. Alright, so I'm just going to review some things before we get started with our lesson today based on what we did yesterday. So when we're looking at a system of equations, so I'm just going to start with this one right here that I'm highlighting in yellow. Say we're looking at a system and we want to know how many solutions does that system have? We don't even have to graph. We can just use our slope and our y-intercept to determine how many solutions it has. So the first thing we always want to do is find the slope of both lines. Okay, so for the one that I've already highlighted, our slope is 3 and our slope is 3. So they have the same slope. So I would go to this side of the little brackets and I would say, okay, they have the same slope. Now what? Well, now I need to find the y-intercept. So the y-intercept for this first one is 4. The y-intercept for this one is 5. They have different y-intercepts, so I'm going to look right here. Well, if they have different y-intercepts, then those lines are parallel and they have no solution. Okay, and you'll see this graph right here kind of shows what parallel lines look like, and they're never going to cross, they're never going to have a solution. And we could have found that out just by looking at our slope and y-intercept without graphing. Next, I'm going to look at this equation right here. So we're going to go through and do the exact same thing. Find the slopes. Well, they have the exact same slopes again. All right. Now find the y-intercept. 2, 2. This time, these have the same y-intercept. So if they have the same y-intercept, these are identical lines. And you can see that y equals 3x plus 2 is the same as y equals 3x plus 2. So that would graph as overlapping lines, and that means there's going to be infinite solutions. They're going to touch every single spot. It's going to be touching every single spot of the other line, because they're right on top of each other. Okay? The third example I want to show you is this one right here. So we want to look at it and we want to see our slope. That's the first question. Find the slope of both lines. Well, I have a 2 and I have a 3. Those are different slopes. If you ever have different slopes, you're going to have one solution. There's no way around it. So it's just going to be lines that cross wherever they do, and that point where they intersect is going to be their solution. So this is what we've learned so far. Today we're actually going to be graphing these and finding them out, but just know that we can predict whether they're going to have one solution, no solution, or infinite solutions just by looking at the slope and y-intercept. Okay, moving on. All right, so for today we are going to be solving the system of equations by graphing. So we're going to graph these two lines that they give us, and we're going to see where do they overlap. Now, one thing you have to know before doing this is how to make sure your equation is in this format, because we cannot graph lines unless they're in that format. So I'm going to look at my equations and see, are they in y equals mx plus b? Well, this first one is not. We have 2y plus x equals 12. So I'm going to have to rewrite this one into the correct format. The second one, y equals 5 over 6x minus 2. Well, that's pretty much in slope-intercept form. I would just put plus negative 2. And so this one is ready for me to graph. But the first one I have to change, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. I have 2y plus 1x, because there's an invisible 1 right there, equals 12. And I'm trying to get my y by itself, so I'm going to move my x's over. I will subtract 1x from both sides. And this is something we practiced a few lessons ago. So now I have 2y equals, well, I want my x's first, right? mx's. So negative 1x plus 12. And then the last thing I'm going to do is divide by my coefficient, do it on both sides. Over here I'm left with y equals negative 1 over 2x plus 12 over 2 is the same as 6. So this is my equation now. So I have rewritten it in slope-intercept form. I'm now going to graph this green one that I've boxed and the yellow one that I boxed and see where they overlap. So starting with this green one, I'm going to be looking at my y-intercept and I'm going to plot that as a point. So it's up 6. So I'm going up to the 6 on my y-axis. This is where it's crossing. And then I'm going to look at my slope. Well, what does my slope tell me? What is the rise? Well, the rise is -1, so I'm going to be going down 1. And then what's the run? 2, so I'm going to be going right 2. 1, 2. And there's my point. And I'm just going to do that for a few points here because I want to make sure I have a line long enough to find where it crosses my other line. So I'm going to go down 1, right 2. Down 1, right 2. 1, right 2. Down 1, right 2. 1, right 2. And this is the line that I have made. Okay. Now I'm going to be graphing this yellow line right here. So it says my y-intercept is at -2. So this is my b. So I'm starting all the way down here at -2. And then my slope is 5/6. So it's +5. So I'm going to be going rising +5. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my run is 6. So I'm going to be going right 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Point right there. And I can make another point, so I'm going to be rising 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 3 points for this line. Draw it out, and I want to say, where's the solution to these equations? Where do they overlap? Well, they overlap right here. You can see it hits that point. And what is that point? I need to write it out. Where does this point land? Well, it lands at 6 for my x, and it lands at 3 for my y. So the coordinate where it lands, the solution is 6, 3. Okay? Make sure you have this down before we move forward. All right, example number 2. Again, I just need to make sure my system is written in y = mx + b format. Looking at this first line that they give me, it is not. So I'm going to have to take that and change it to y = mx + b format. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this x because I want my y by itself. So take away an x from both sides. Over here it cancels. I'm left with y equals, well, I want my x's first. So I have -x, and that's actually -1x because the one's invisible. And then I have a -2. And now it is in slope-intercept form. I have y = mx + b. So if I were to rewrite this system, I have y = -1x + -2. And the one they gave me down here doesn't need to be changed. It's already in slope-intercept form. Y = 4x + 3. From there, I'm going to graph these. So the first one I'm going to graph is the top one. I'm starting at -2. So that's where my first point is on my y-axis because that's my y-intercept. And then from there I'm going to look at my slope. My slope is -1. So remember this, our slope is a fraction. So if it says it's -1, the denominator is going to be 1, okay? And this tells us our rise, and this tells us our run. So it says that we are going -1, so our rise is -1, so we're going down 1. So we're going to go down 1, and then our run is over 1, and we always go right, so we're going to go right 1. So this is where this line is going to be. Now, it kind of runs out of space right there. I can't go any further, but I can work backwards. And the same as going backwards with my slope. Instead of going down 1, right 1, I'm going to go up 1, left 1, up 1, left 1. And I'm going to just put a point for all of these little sections. Find my little pattern. And so this is the line for my first equation. I have graphed it. And now I'm going to do the same for my second equation. So the y-intercept for the second equation is at +3, plotted at +3. And then my slope for the second equation is +4. So again, remember, our slope is a fraction. So slope is +4 over 1. We always have to put the over 1. And this is our rise, and this is our run. So we have 4 to +4, so we're going up. So starting with this green point, we're going to go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to go right 1. Right 1. All right. And if I wanted to put another point down below, I would just do the opposite. I would go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And instead of going right 1, I'm working backwards, so I'm just going to go left 1, and it would have hit right there. So this is the equation from, or the line for my second line. And my question here is, where do they cross? What's the solution? So the solution, they cross right here. And this is at -1 for my x. And this is at -1 for my y. That is the solution to this equation, or the system of equations. All right, so before I get into what our new learning is for today, I just want to go over, I have already changed these equations to follow slope-intercept form. So our new learning is just making sure these are written in the correct format so that we can graph them. And we're going to use our slopes and y-intercepts to graph these lines. So you always want to start wherever your y-intercept is, plot your points, and then you want to use your slopes to find the next points to create your line. So I'm going to do that really quickly on the video. So you can see I've graphed my first line. It was starting at -3 for its y-intercept, and then it was going down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. I only had one space to make a point right here, down 3 over 1, so I had to work backwards and go up 3, left 1, and that's how I got my other points, up 3, left 1, up 3, left 1, okay? Now to graph my second equation. My second equation started at the y-intercept of +2, which is right here, made it really thick, and then our slope was up 2 over 1, so up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and then I worked backwards because I needed a longer line, so I went down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1, and from there, my line was graphed. Now, the new learning for today is finding our solution through graphing. Where do these two lines cross? Well, they cross right here at this point. And where is this point located? Well, for my x, this is at -1 for my x, and for my y, it's at 0. It hasn't gone up any on my y-axis. So this is our new learning for today. All right, for exercise 1, I have already taken your two equations that they gave you, and I've put them in slope-intercept form. So all you need to do now is look at the y-intercepts, plot those, and then use your slopes to plot the rest of the lines. So take about 2 minutes to do this, and then we're going to check it together and see where do these lines cross. What is the solution here? All right, for this first one right here, you can see it's starting at a y-intercept of -6. So I'm looking at my y-axis, and it's going to hit this wherever there's a -6. So it hits right here at the -6. And then I'm going to look at my slope, and my slope tells me my rise over my run. So my rise, and I always go right, my rise is going to be up 2, right 3. So we're going to go up 2, right 3. Up 2, right 3. Okay, and this is my line for this first equation. Second equation, my y-intercept, this is where I'm starting, is at +2. So looking at this y-axis, I'm looking for the +2 and putting a point. And then my slope is going to be -2. Remember, it's a fraction, so it has to be over 1. And this tells me my rise and my run. Well, my -2, my rise is negative, so I'm going to be going down 2. And then I'm going to always just go right 1. So down 2, right 1. Down 2, right 1. I can see they just cross right there. So I create my blue line, and then I can see where do these guys cross. They cross right here. Where is this point? Well, this point is at 3 for my x, and -4 for my y. So that is my solution for this system, 3, -4. All right, same thing for exercise 2. I've gone ahead and written both of our equations, made sure that they were both in slope-intercept form. So now you're just going to be looking at your slopes and your y-intercepts, and you're just going to graph them and see where these lines cross. Take a second to do it, and then I'm going to show you my answer. Okay. All right, for this first line, our y-intercept is 3, and our slope is 1 over 1. Okay. For the second line, our y-intercept was -2, and our slope was -4 over 1. So I'm going to use those two things to graph. So for the first one, I'm starting at +3, and I'm going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1 forever. So this is my line here. For the second one, I'm starting at -2 for my y-intercept, and then we're going to go down 4 over 1, down 4 over 1. So down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. And I don't have any room there, so now I'm going to have to do the opposite. I'm going to have to go backwards and go up 4, the other way, 1, backwards 1. So there's my two lines, and where they cross is right here. The solution is at -1 for my x-axis, 2 for my y-axis. So this is our solution to this system. Check your work with my work. To close out the lesson, I'm just going to go ahead and read through this. One way to find a solution to a system of equations is to graph, and that's what we have done today. Wherever those lines intersect, that is our solution. Before graphing lines, we have to write our equations in slope-intercept form, and once we write them in slope-intercept form, we use our y-intercept and our slope to graph. So that is what we have done today. Here's your exit ticket for this lesson. What I'm going to go ahead and do for you is put both of these equations in slope-intercept form, just to make it a little bit easier for you. All you have to do is graph them and tell me where they intersect. Okay? All right, so you'll see that I've taken this first equation, I showed some of my math up here, and I rewrote your equations for you. So you have y equals 2x plus 1 and y equals 5x minus 5. Please graph these. Look for the intersection and tell me what's your solution. What is that intersection? So those are your 3 steps, okay? And that is the end of the lesson for today.